Hello everyone, my name is Anindya Esnag and I am a certified integrated clinical hypnotherapist. Okay, but my approach in therapy is a little bit more Jungian. Okay, I incorporate a lot of inner child integration in my treatment plan as well. And thanks a lot, first of all, for bringing a lot of queries um, regarding specific issues while catering to the needs of the client and the personal as a therapist needs as well, and I have been related to answer these questions. One of the most common questions, and I felt that there is a specific segment of the case history taking that a lot of us are not taking care of. And today I'm going to talk to you about why that particular segment of case history taking is extremely important if you are a child psychologist or you are someone who is catering to the special children. Okay, and you are a counselor, okay, or you are a clinical psychologist, then also I want you to put a little bit more emphasis on this particular segment of case history taking. Okay, so the first one of the queries was that the child is very young, has below average IQ, but the child is showing some tantrums, okay, and has a distinct urge to hurt someone. So when this urge is coming up, the counselor is taking note of it, and the therapists are also planning some intervention how to, regulate that particular urge to hurt someone. The work is happening, the whole thing is happening, and the treatment is working for a week or so, and the child again, is coming with the same urge to hurt someone. So see, in special children, we cannot expect a level of intelligence that is required to intervene then that urge, okay, find the emotional regulation system and then change our action or change the behavior. That thing has to be taken care of by the mother, the father, and the therapist, right? So then, because we cannot expect the child to do that himself or herself, the entire onus of emotional regulation comes on to the adult, whoever the adult is. The caretaker can be or the therapist can be. But we have to understand as counselors, even though we know the emotional regulation system, because the emotional regulation system is temporary. Remember, every single time your client, irrespective of their intelligence level, okay, they will keep on facing new and new environmental stimulus will be different, and the context will be different as well. So depending on the context, the emotional regulation system has to be, a new regulation system is to be brought into the picture, right? So because you are not someone who is going to be sitting with the client 24/7, won't be able to give every single hint into what to be done next. So this client will be your permanent client. But you won't have the satisfaction of knowing that okay, this particular issue has been taken care of once and for all. And in order to understand this, how can we deal with this particular issue, I wanted to take a detailed case history. Okay, and here I'm going to introduce some of the controversial things. Because why these are controversial? Because as hypnotherapists, people who have delved into the subconscious layer of that particular issue have understood it, but other modalities that are more conscious are yet to understand. So there is always a controversy. How can you be so sure? Because it's very subjective. Okay, but my understanding is coming from several cases where I'm seeing the same thing. So I won't be telling you if this is the particular symptom, then this is the cause. I won't be giving you that particular, a straightforward statement. But I would ask you to find the answers at a particular section, and that section is uh, the sexual history of the mother. Okay, and it is a little bit difficult to gather. To lighten the blow, you can also you should focus on the the womb history, okay? Let's not call it the sexual history, the womb history. Why I'm saying womb history? Because whatever happened to the womb, including sex, including pregnancy, conception, including abortions, miscarriages, and birthing of the child, even after the birth of the child, what happened to the womb? What were the, while the womb was healing and coming back to its normal state, what was happening around, how it was, impacting the psychological sphere and the physical and the mental sphere of the mother, will also give you a very strong clue into why this particular child has ADHD, why this child is having ASD, why this child is showing this specific symptom only. Because most of the symptoms in ADHD, ASD, okay, in this neurodevelopmental and this particular kind of issues is that these all symptoms are emotional regulation strategies unique to them, right? They're all emotional regulations system. But why does the child require extended and consistent amount of emotional regulation? Should be your question. It shouldn't be like, okay, okay, this child has this is symptom, it looks like an ASD, okay? So if it is an ASD, this is a specific criteria of ASD, this much percentage, or this is the scale, and we are going to just regulate the child, and we are going to bring them a lot of occupational systems so that the child is okay. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to also understand why this child, what happened in the child's space, that this person has to go through a particular kind of a emotional regulation system. This has to be in your mind. So in the case that I was given, where the question was asked, where the child wanted to hurt someone, we had to understand a specific thing. It was a specific thing, very specific. The child is saying, I want to do this. And the child has the cognizance that doing this is also not justified. It doesn't feel right. Okay, so you see the disparity. When this level of intelligence is there, your treatment plan can work if you know why the child is feeling the need to hurt someone. Now whenever there is a case of ASD, or sorry, ADHD or ASD, remember, you have to also delve into the relationship between the parents. And I have talked to, because I'm not a child psychologist, okay, I'm not specialized in this particular field, but the people who are connected to me, especially my fellow therapists, are in this field, and we sit down and we discuss these cases, right? So when we discuss these cases, and I have cross-checked with few of the child psychologists, okay, and they told me, yes, they confirmed that yes, it is a phenomena that the either of the parent was not ready for a child, or was not ready for a marriage, or was in still in love with an ex, okay, and this resulted in a lot of tensions between the spouse, okay. So this particular excess turmoil, tensions, a lot of feelings of betrayal, and these all things kept on playing in the mind of the mother. And there is also an element of emotional neglect or physical neglect from uh, the spouse, the father, okay, and that results into an excess karmic baggage, a lot of tension. That pressure is felt by the mother, and remember, whatever the mother feels, the child automatically picks it up. The child, when is in the womb, won't be able to differentiate between his feeling and the mother's feeling, right? So it takes him, which we call it the karmic inheritance. You have the karmic inheritance because you are entering into the womb of your mother. You are signing a contract. Okay, this is what you have been through, this is what my father gave me, this is what happened in my father's side, this is what happened in my mother's side. So these all things, I will pick this, I'm signing a contract, I will hold these energies in me as well, I will process these energies, which we call as the karmic inheritance, okay, the karmic baggage we call it, the ancestral baggage as we call it, okay. So you sign a contract, the child signs a contract, I will handle this particular problem. Now when the karmic issues the issues of the mother, issues of the father, the feelings and emotions of the mother and the father are not in resonance with the child's temperament. Okay, so it's a misnomer that we believe that the child is a tabula rasa, the mind of the child is a tabula rasa. It's not a blank slate. The child already has its own blueprint, what it's supposed to be doing in life. Okay, the natural energy and the vibration of the child. So when the karmic baggage and the child's natural energies are not in resonance, I mean to say that whatever the mother is feeling and what the child is supposed to become, if they are not in resonance, then this energy won't come into a personality state. Okay, it will stay in the mental sphere and it will look like a behavioral issue. It will look like a malfunction of some sort. Okay, then we have symptoms of ADHD. You will notice in ADHD there is exaggeration of every single stimulus. The child is going to exaggerate every single, the sensitivity either is too much or they're always on processing some energy. What is this energy? This energy can be of the mother or can be of the father or both of them. Then it becomes an ADHD issue. If it is an issue that is equal to the issue of the child, the natural and energy of the child, then it will look like a personality issue. Then only we see personality issues. Okay, till then it may look like ASD, it may look like ADHD, or it can also come across as an OCD or OCD like symptoms. Okay, why? In all of these cases, what I'm saying, whenever there is a behavioral issues, you will notice there is some energy that is demanding to be processed. And remember one thing, the law of energy is such that if this energy is not yours, your body and mind won't be able to process it completely. It will always be in the process of processing it, but it won't be completely processing it. This is why you will notice there are clients who will come to you for catharsis. For years and years they are in catharsis, but the issue is not getting solved because that issue is not theirs. The origin of the issue is not from the client's body, it is coming from someone else's body. They have taken this energy, okay, and they have signed a contract. Okay, I will process it, but the processing will never stop unless and until whoever has created this particular energy takes the responsibility of the energy. Okay, so I'm talking in terms of the collective unconscious, the Jungian perspective, collective unconscious. The unconscious material takes its own behavior and personality. It will process itself in your conscious realm. You won't have any volitional control over that. Isn't it something that is very common to ADHD, even in OCD, even in a lot of anxiety, neurotic tendencies, even in some of the psychotic issues as well. Okay, so when a special child has a special drive or an instinct to hurt or chew, to bite, to hit the head, you have to be very, very mindful where it is coming from. So in this case, this therapist told me we are not able to identify the trigger. We are not able to, in fact, the mother is also not able to identify what's the trigger, because CBT teaches you have to find the trigger, right? But the trigger is not present. And in subconscious modalities, we understand that when you are not able to trace a particular trigger or a sensitizing event, it is an unconscious material. You have to delve into the subconscious of the client. And the problem with special children is that you cannot enter their mind. They are wrapped in so much nonsense, so much of energies. They're just focused. They're ASD children. Have you noticed? They're focused in something. They require that excess focus because the entire their mind is shrouded by so much of karmic baggage, and they have signed a contract. We will work through it. And the problem why ASD symptoms alleviate to some point, and they do not, ASD is a condition. We treat ASD as a condition because it is going to be there with the child forever. It is happening because the problem is not theirs. They signed a contract. Okay, we will take care of it in this lifetime, but the problem comes from someone else. Okay, who is the someone else? It is the mother, father, or someone, some another person. So I'm going to give you two different examples. Okay, and in one example what happened, we had a client, um, both the mother and the child were our clients, and the child was not diagnosed with any issue, but the symptoms were very much bipolar. Like it was just, you know, touching the bipolar tendencies. uh, it has not fully manifested. We were on the initial stages of the bipolar working itself out in the system of the child, and the mother was also going through different set of issues. Of course, because the relationship between the mother and the child was disturbed, so it looked like a family issue. Okay, family counseling issue. So we were working through that. Two separate therapists working on two different clients coming from the same family, of course, and we were working through, and we noticed that both of them are uttering the same dialogue. So there is this life script. What is the life script? You will notice in positive psychology we have something called life script, where it's like, I am okay, others are not okay, or I am not okay, others are okay. Okay, when these two life script comes up, remember there is a problem. There is some level of cognitive dissonance, or something is wrong in the system of the client. So we notice there's a specific statement common, that everyone is there to get me. Okay, everyone is trying something, is trying to harm me. And that sentence is so specific, it has such beautiful charge. What is the beautiful charge I'm talking about? It is a statement coming up again and again, and when the client is uttering that, it's it's visceral. It is coming from the gut, as if this is the only problem I'm facing. Okay, and remember, I told you both the therapists, they share their notes to understand exactly what is wrong, because the mother is also creating a carousel of events. Okay, and the therapist is turning, both the therapists are turning in the stories of the mother and the child, and both of them had to note it down because it's a family counseling issue, right? It's a family issue, so we have to sit and work through, and we identify the most charged statement is the same for both the therapists. That's when we decided to delve into that particular statement. And this is a statement of the daughter. Of course there are events where she felt this. Okay, but the intensity of that statement and the intensity of the circumstance were not matching. It only matched for the mother, where the mother is telling that when I was pregnant with this child, I was surrounded by so many people who were there to get me. And then we had to ask, because in cognitive dissonance you ask specific, you know clarifying questions. So how do you know that they were there to harm you? So now the client, the mother, is now telling us a list of events. This happened, and this happened, and this happened. Okay, now fortunately what happened, we worked on that particular, whoever the responsible therapist for the mother was the one who dissolved that particular emotional intensity, the intensity of threat, right? Dissolve that. A lot of different therapeutic techniques were taken care of. Okay, and once that particular issue got solved for the mother, the daughter did not have the same issue anymore. The symptoms of the child elevated completely, and that's how I understood that this issue is coming from the mother. And when special children landed up in my clinic, I saw that the child is hitting his head only when the mother is talking about the father. Only when and when I asked the mother in the session itself, when you are talking about your husband and what happened between you and your husband, how do you feel? Now she is saying, I don't know, I just want to bang my head and get out of this particular drama. Or the child is banging his head on the opposite room. At the same time, the child had autistic features, by the way. So hence I am saying that whenever you notice such kind of symptoms happening, irrespective, so now listen, now you don't have to sit with this diagnosis bit of it. You're not supposed to sit with like, okay, the child has ADHD or this child has OCD or whatever. Whenever you notice there is a charged statement and the statement is something that is not matching the circumstance of the client, it is matching but the intensity is not the same, and your child and your client is looking possessed when that particular statement is being uttered, you have to cross check if it is coming from the mother or father. We call it a mother complex or the father complex. Is it coming from something else? And once you know, in case of, because it becomes easier for children or clients who come with their parents, okay, when the parents are living and they are taking the responsibility of processing their issues, their feelings in the therapy with you. Because I have had clients whose parents denied taking part in the therapeutic process, because I had to be very very frank that I cannot deal with this particular issue in your system. It is coming from your father or it is coming from your mother, and I require the mother to be sitting here. I require the mother to take the responsibility and clear it in her space, because even though I'm going to take 3 sessions, 8 sessions, 10 sessions in your space, I won't find the resolution because it's not your issue. So if you have a client, special child, and because with special child the parents also come, and I have discussed this with a few of my colleagues, but regarding this, and they told me that many parents are not ready to take that particular responsibility. Yes, that this is my feeling, this is my trauma, because they don't feel comfortable with the idea that whatever the child is going through is their problem. Okay, they feel the shame of it. But the few of the parents who have been focused on elevating the symptoms of the children have taken the responsibility and they have processed that particular emotion or feeling, the child has felt a lot of relief, a lot of relief. The same issue does not come up again. Okay, so apart from all these cases that I have discussed and all the gyan that I am giving you, it is very important. It's imperative for you to take a detailed case history, especially the sexual history, because sometimes if you notice, the clients may come up to you with especially the teenagers will come up to you, or married men and women will tell you that they're addicted to sex. It looks like they're addicted to sex because that is a form of emotional regulation, and even though no matter how much amount of treatment plan you go put effort in, you will notice that's not working, because later you may find out that either the father or the mother of the client had an unsatisfactory sexual history or was not happy in the sex life, and that particular drive is has been taken by the child, and the child is processing the drive of that parent, and is looking like an addiction, but it probably is not. Okay, so you take the sexual history of the client and the mother's and the father's sexual history, if you're comfortable taking it. Okay, if you're not able to tap into the sexual history, I mean, many clients won't be giving you the details of it, right? But you will get a lot of clue if you take in the womb history. Okay, many of my clients who have been through abuse uh, become surprised when they understand it's not their abuse, it's their mother's abuse they're processing in their body. And that revelation itself creates that gap between the client's emotions and the emotions borrowed from a parent. That gives the revelation itself creates the space, and in the space now you have the control from where you can, now when the space is created and you are able to plan some intervention, some catharsis or something is happening, your client is not attached to that particular pain anymore, doesn't require to process that problem anymore in his or her space. Okay, so how do you ask this particular womb history? Okay, So imagine there is a client and the client's mother's history you are taking. So I generally ask my clients to first ask how many miscarriages your mother had, how many abortions, how many conceptions. Just get the number. Okay, sometimes a lot of people may not be, mothers may not be comfortable telling you that they had a conception before marriage. So you just ask how many conceptions, how many, very important, how many abortions, okay, and how many miscarriages. You gather that information, okay, and then you ask, while I was in your womb, you have to give that particular instruction. Sometimes I write the instructions from my clients so that they can just read it out to their mothers. Okay, so while I was in the womb, how was your mental condition? Who all were there? How comfortable were you? Was there any significant stress? That's it. And if you find the client's mother is someone very responsible, takes the responsibility, you allow the client to sit, okay, rest for a while, take the mother and take consent that if she is willing to go through that particular treatment therapy or not, and then process that particular issue in her space, and within 3 days you will see the miraculous effect of it, because you're working with the origin of the issue, right? And you will see this, you are bound to see the difference. And once you see the difference, you feel really very good about you about yourself as a counselor and a psychologist, okay? So this is the topic. If you have questions regarding how to ask this particular kind of questions, if you are not comfortable asking these questions, okay, and you want other ways and tips and tricks how to put this question forward, and how can I delve into a sexual history, and how can I relate with this particular symptom of my client with the sexual history, or the prenatal and postnatal history of this child, you can just put a question below, okay? Just comment me or you directly contact me. I'm available to give you and help you out with this process. And if you like this kind of content, please like, share, and subscribe, okay? And it will be great if you put in questions based on which I can make furthermore, informative videos on. Thanks for listening today. Bye.